Welcome to the deep dive, where we try to cut through the noise and get straight to the essential insights.
Yeah.
Today, we're diving into a figure who really defines paradox. Heinrich Heine. I mean, imagine this. A writer celebrated across Europe, the most widely read German poet of his time,
Right.
and yet also seen as totally scandalous, a really controversial figure. A contested monument is how people often describe him in German culture.
Yeah, and for good reason. What really hits you first about Heine is this embrace of contradiction.
Okay.
His work just swings wildly,
Yeah.
from this incredibly beautiful, sweet, romantic poetry to the sharpest, most, bitter attacks in prose. There's always this push and pull, love and hate in his writing, and how people reacted to him. He actually summed it up himself famously as ambrosia and sauerkraut.
Ambrosia and sauerkraut. I love that. It's so vivid.
Isn't it? It perfectly captures that mix, the sublime and the biting.
So our mission today is really to unpack this complex identity. People talk about his Jewish Dionysus persona.
That's right.
We want to explore his insights, which feel surprisingly modern, actually, into art, politics, religion,
Yeah.
and uncover his huge, often sort of hidden influence on some really major thinkers later on. You'll see these apparent contradictions weren't flaws at all.
No, they were the engine. Absolutely. And I think it's vital we start with his unique position as a German Jew.
Okay, yeah.
The philosopher Hannah Arendt, she said something quite provocative about him. She called him the only German Jew who could truthfully describe himself as both a German and a Jew.
Wow. Both at once.
Exactly. And he felt that conflict. It wasn't comfortable. He knew there was this inherent tension, often painful. And this Jewish background, it's fundamental, but sometimes overlooked. You can't really separate it from his contentiousness or his humor.
And this wasn't just theoretical for him, was it? I mean, his life circumstances really forced the issue.
Absolutely. He grew up in Düsseldorf under Napoleon, which for a brief time meant emancipation for Jews, a bit of freedom. But then, boom, Prussia takes over. Everything changes. Hostility, actual laws, limiting what Jews could do professionally.
So real concrete barriers.
Concrete barriers.
Yeah.
And that pressure led directly to this huge decision in 1825, his conversion to Protestantism.
Which sounds like a massive step.
Yeah.
Why did he do it? And, how did that actually play out for him?
It was definitely strategic. People saw it as an entrance ticket to European culture.
Yeah.
Right? It meant he could potentially get university jobs, things that were closed off to him as a Jew.
Makes sense, pragmatically.
Pragmatically, yes.
Yeah.
But the regret, almost immediate. He wrote about feeling hated by Christian and Jew, alienated from both sides.
Oh, wow.
And he predicted, chillingly, that converting wouldn't stop people attacking him as a Jew. And he was right. It just underscores this non-integrated status. The personal cost was immense.
So he tries to integrate for practical reasons and ends up even more isolated. That's rough.
It really was.
Now, you mentioned this idea, this persona, the Jewish Dionysus. It sounds incredibly provocative. What's behind that?
It is provocative. Okay, so you have to picture Germany at the time, very into ancient Greece, but a specific version. All about order, beauty, Apollo, Zeus, the idealized figures.
Sort of clean, classical image.
Exactly. The German Hellenists love that. Heine comes along and basically says no. He throws out Apollo and champions Dionysus.
The god.
Of wine, ecstasy, but also, crucially for Heine, of ugliness and destruction, of chaos and contingency. It was complete rejection of that neat, orderly ideal, a seismic shift, really, in how German intellectuals thought about antiquity.
So he's deliberately choosing the messy, chaotic god over the serene ones.
Precisely. And what's really fascinating is how he weaves this embrace of Dionysus together with what seems like a late turn back towards Judaism near the end of his life. It shows his deep ambivalence, these radical contrasts he held. There's this amazing poem, Princess Sabbath. He jokingly promotes sholet, a traditional Jewish stew, very earthy, he calls it, the true creator's kosher banquet of ambrosia.
Instead of the Greek kind.
Exactly. He contrasts it directly with the devil's filth ambrosia of the false Greek gods. He's using his Jewish heritage to mock the whole idea of a single, pure cultural source. It's brilliant.
And that brings us back to his humor, doesn't it? It wasn't just for entertainment. It was a tool. A weapon, almost.
Oh, absolutely a weapon.
Right.
Peter Sloterdijk, another philosopher, he nailed it when he called Heine's style satirical, polemical, wholly non-seriousness.
A wholly non-seriousness. I
That's
like
perfect,
that.
right? He wasn't just cracking jokes. He was using wit, irony, satire to deliberately mess with the established literary and philosophical rules, to shake things up.
So that non-seriousness let him critique things others maybe couldn't or wouldn't.
Precisely. He could tackle these deeply embedded ideas, powerful institutions, without having to play by the usual rules of academic debate or political writing. It was his own unique way, and it let him see things, well, prophetically.
And some of those prophecies are just bone-chilling. He seemed to have this uncanny knack for seeing where German culture might be heading.
He really did. Think about that line from his early play, Almansor, written way back around 1820-22.
The famous one.
The famous one.
Yeah.
Where they burn books, they will, in the end, burn human beings too.
Yeah.
And today you see that quote on monuments, like at the Bebelplatz in Berlin where the Nazi book burnings happened, in Holocaust museums. It's just stark.
A direct line to 20th century tragedy.
And it wasn't a one-off flash of insight. Later, in 1834, he wrote The History of Religion and Philosophy in Germany. And in it, he basically warns that Christianity had sort of put a lid on this brutal Germanic love of war.
Only somewhat mitigated it, I think he said.
Exactly. But he warned, if that Christian symbol, the cross, were ever shattered, then the frenzied madness of the ancient warriors will once more burst into flame.
Oh.
And then he delivers this killer line. A play will be performed in Germany which will make the French Revolution look like an innocent idol. Decades before it happened, he just understood these underlying dangerous currents in German political culture.
That's genuinely unsettling. How did he arrive at insights like that when others didn't seem to see it coming? What was his approach?
Well, I think it ties into what he called his politics of literature. He fundamentally believed that literary and artistic values were, in a sense, more important, or at least had priority over purely political goals.
So art wasn't just a tool for politics.
Not for him, no. He wasn't trying to push a party line. He believed art had this transcendent power to reveal deeper truths, often truths that political discourse missed. This put him at odds with people like Ludwig Börne.
Oh, he was Börne.
Börne was another writer, very politically committed, who thought aesthetics should serve politics. Heine disagreed. You see it in how he defended Goethe, the great poet. Critics attacked Goethe for being apolitical, detached.
Right.
But Heine defended him, saying, look, Goethe's artistic achievement, its value, transcends everyday politics, and he saw himself in that same vein.
So art has its own kind of truth, its own significance. And this relates to that famous distinction he made, the Hellene versus Nazarene idea.
Exactly. It's all connected. He used this dichotomy to categorize different cultural attitudes. He labeled Börne, for instance, as a type of Nazarene.
Which meant?
For Heine, Nazarene wasn't just Christian. It encompassed Jews, too. Anyone with what he saw as an ascetic, moralistic, maybe even puritanical worldview. Life-denying, in a way.
Okay.
And he aligned himself, and Goethe, with the Hellenes. Pagan, sensual, art-loving, life-affirming.
Embracing the world, not rejecting it.
Precisely. And this wasn't just some abstract literary game. He explicitly called it part of his modern resistance as a Jew to others' interpretations of what is a Jew.
Ah, so reclaiming identity.
Yes. By choosing the Hellene label, he was pushing back against the rigid boxes that both traditional religion and politically driven writers tried to put him in. He was asserting his own fluid, sensual, intellectually free self against dogma. It was incredibly bold.
That independent, maybe even rebellious spirit clearly allowed him to influence so many thinkers who came after him, sometimes in ways they didn't even admit.
Oh, definitely. The echoes are fascinating. Let's talk about Goethe first.
Right, the great pagan no one.
Exactly. Heine saw himself as great pagan no, too. They shared some common ground opposition to Christian dogma, to nationalism, to certain strands of Romanticism, but the relationship was fraught.
How so?
Well, Heine adored Goethe, absolutely worshipped him in some ways. But there was also this unavoidable rivalry, maybe jealousy. Heine even planned to write his own version of Faust that would be the total opposite of Goethe's.
Really trying to challenge the master.
Constantly wrestling with that legacy, yeah. But maybe even more striking is the connection to Nietzsche.
Okay, yeah, this is where you said it gets really interesting.
It really does. Because Nietzsche's most famous idea, arguably God is dead,
yeah,
you can trace that directly back to Heine.
No way. How?
Well, Heine had already written these incredibly powerful poetic passages describing, quote, ancient Jehovah himself, who was preparing for death. He wrote about bringing the sacraments to a dying God. He even identified the philosopher Kant as God's executioner for tearing down traditional arguments for God's existence.
So Heine laid the groundwork, poetically.
He did. And not just the idea, but the style. Heine's way of using poetic, aesthetic language to do philosophy. That anticipates Nietzsche's whole joyful wisdom approach. Nietzsche himself knew it. He called Heine one of the foremost artists of the German language. He saw Heine as an ally, actually an anti-Semite, unlike Wagner.
That's a huge connection. And it doesn't stop there, right? There's Marx, too.
Karl Marx,
Yeah.
Friend, and actually a cousin of Heine's wife, though some say cousin of Heine himself. Connections were close either way.
Yeah.
Marx's famous line, "Religion is the opiate of the people."
Uh-huh.
That strongly echoes things Heine had already written about religion being a sort of comfort, a consolation for suffering.
Okay, so an echo there. Anything more direct?
Oh, yes. Even more direct. Marx's other famous observation about history repeating itself, first as tragedy, the second time as farce.
Yeah.
That's lifted, almost word for word and without credit, from Heine's analysis of Kant and Robespierre in that History of Religion and Philosophy book we mentioned.
Wow, uncredited. So Heine's ideas were really filtering through. What did Heine himself think about communism, which was emerging then?
He was deeply ambivalent. On the one hand, he had this greatest fear and sorrow about dark iconoclasts, revolutionaries who might destroy all the art and culture he loved, total destruction.
Okay, a fear of barbarism.
Yeah. But on the other hand, he admitted communism had a magical appeal. He saw it as this powerful voice of hatred, but one directed, interestingly, not just at the rich, but specifically at the German nationalists he despised. So fear and fascination, side by side.
Holding contradictions again. Now, the relationship with Wagner, that sounds particularly toxic.
Toxic is a good word for it. I mean, you have Wagner writing Jewry in music, this incredibly vicious anti-Semitic track specifically attacking Heine, calling for Jews basically to disappear, to go under. Horrific stuff.
It's like vile.
Utterly. And yet, and this is the unbelievable part, Heine was a major source for Wagner. Unacknowledged, twisted, turned negative, and ultimately vilified, but still a source for several of Wagner's key ideas, particularly around myth and Gesamtkunstwerk, the total work of art.
How is that even possible?
Wagner was sort of Heine's dark reflection, his unhumorous double, someone called him. He took Heine's irony, his sharp wit, his critique, and basically stripped out the humor, twisted it into this heavy reactionary idealism, often without a whisper of where the original thought came from. It's a really disturbing example of influence and erasure.
A tragic irony given Wagner's later status.
Deeply ironic and tragic.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, Heinrich Heine really stands out, doesn't he? He's this incredibly pivotal figure. Lyric poet, yes, but also literary provocateur, a profound thinker, even if not a systematic one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That profound ambivalence, those internal conflicts, the way he slammed ideas together, that's not just some historical curiosity. It feels incredibly relevant today.
Why do you think it still resonates so much?
Well, think about it. His relentless exploration of identity. What does it mean to be German, Jewish, European, all at once? His wrestling with the role of art in a politically charged society. The complex dance between religion, politics, and culture. These are our issues too, aren't they?
They really are.
His work is this masterclass in how to resist easy answers, how to navigate complex, conflicting loyalties, and just the sheer power of literature to diagnose, critique, and maybe even warn us about where things might be headed. The fact that he's still a contested monument, even debated in modern Israel, that just proves his lasting, complicated power.
It certainly does. So, to leave you, our listener, with something to maybe chew on, how does Heine's way of just fearlessly embracing contradiction, holding opposing truths together, maybe help us look more critically at our own world? In what ways could exploring our own ambivalences, maybe with some of Heine's honesty and wit, lead us to, I don't know, deeper understanding, more insightful critiques of the society we live in right now?